His birthday was last week, and he only thing he wanted was a golf lesson. So I got him one from the guy at Pros right up on the top of the hill there in Stony Creek. And he's gone, and it's $45 for 45 minutes. And he absolutely loved it. And so he booked another session just because he said it really helped. He was getting frustrated there for his golf swing and stuff. So yeah, he said it really was helpful.
That's the best way to do it. There's so many instructors on YouTube you could watch, and you just get confused. Everyone's got a different idea.
Yeah.
I even watched. Do you remember Mo Norman? He was like an autistic Canadian, and he was a prodigy. Like no one could golf like this guy, but he didn't have the social skills to be a pro. But he could hit the same club and do just as good as a PGA pro. Like he could hit a 3-iron all day long, just a 3-iron. He was a real crazy guy.
Yeah,
anyway, somebody's done online sort of Mo Norman techniques, and if you ever try that, boy, your whole game's screwed.
Oh, that was a great story.
Yeah, I think so.
Really good story.
Presenter's laptop, sound check number 1.
That's awesome. You know, I used to work at a specialized preschool, and I'll tell you, there were a lot of kids that, again, no social skills, no nothing. But I swear to God, they could go up to the easel and they could print everything and anything at the age of 3.5, 4, like print sentences. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. Just talent.
Oh yeah.
And I think at that time it was considered an idiot savant.
Yeah, they call you a savant.
Yeah.
My cousin plays
Clerk's
guitar
laptop,
like Led
sound
Zeppelin.
check number
He's
1.
autistic.
Well, that's who our oldest is named after. Is my very first special needs. His name was Daniel, and they allowed me to take him up to Shadok for his sessions.
Oh, nice.
Let's get the show on the road.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our planning committee. We'll call the meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton, archived on our city's website, as well a reminder that all electronic devices and so on and so forth. Members of the committee, please use the talk hand sign.
Great.
If you need to speak between items, this is a new and, from what I understand from yesterday's Emergency Community Services meeting, a well-received gesture. So raise a hand to move and second an item, and then the talk sign if you want to speak to an item. Madam Clerk, looking for changes to the agenda. Oh, roll call first. Thank you. I'm here. Councillor Johnson.
Good morning.
Collins. Whitehead. Councillor Partridge.
Good morning.
Councillor Wilson.
Good morning, present.
Councillor Danko.
Present.
Councillor Maria Pearson.
Present.
All right, Madam Clerk, changes, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there are changes. We have correspondence from Matt Johnson, Urban Solutions, respecting a request for a minor variance for 125 to 127 Yonge Street and 122 to 126 Augusta Street. We also have item 4.2, Mike Bozo, respecting Backyard Hens pilot project. We have written delegations for item 6.2, which is the application for zoning bylaw amendment for 323 Rymel Road East. The written submission is from George Lilly. And the following written delegations are respecting 370 Concession Street, which is item 8.1 on today's agenda. And that is from Terry Brown, Ian Ludbrook, Pearl Davy, Jackie Bowden, and Elva Davenport.
All right, thank you. A motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Councillor Partridge. All in favor? Discussion on this agenda as amended.
Your mic.
The discussion on the agenda as amended. Now we voted, right?
Yep.
What do we? Yeah. Members of committee, we're looking for declarations of interest at this time. Seeing none. Those who have a noted conflict, that's not an issue. I need a mover and a seconder now to approve the minutes of the July 7th meeting as presented. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All in favor? Thank you. On to communications. Councillor Danko, can you please take the chair because I would like to move this. I do not have a seconder. And it's not, it's a request to get the pass for the next 9 months on the 2-year deal to have the right to appear at committee of adjustment. So they're not actually looking for a variance, they're looking for the opportunity to go to committee of adjustment, get a staff report on the variance. They don't have that yet, but I don't have a seconder and I'm hopeful.
Councillor Pearson will second that.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. So you'll take the chair, Councillor Danko?
Yep.
So real quick, the first thing I want to do is thank Matt, the planner, for this already approved project. I was last year, I believe it was Corktown Development. Yeah. It was the development of a 4-story multi-residential development with 27 residential dwelling units, 21 parking spaces, and it was there on Augusta Street. This property goes all the way to Yonge Street. However, on the Yonge Street side, I never really could figure out why we didn't want to do something on that side as well. It's a good stretch and a good place for some infill. It's been a kind of a blank parcel and spots for many years. And so now the owner has looked at the Yonge Street side, and instead of what was going to be retaining a 3-unit single detached rental dwelling, has now and this I appreciate, already engaged with the nearby community and really didn't have to, but I'm glad they did. And now we're pitching there a 3-story rental with 12 stacked units for young. And the big thing here is that the parking changes. If there was one thing we heard more than anything when we were engaging on this for many years before we approved it unanimously through planning and ultimately council, is that parking was an issue. So now we go from a total number of 21 spaces to 42 with a ratio of 0.75 per unit to more than 1 per unit. And so I like this, although there is still some devil in details and obviously some more engagement, and ultimately it's up to our planning staff to look at what they're now pitching, mostly for Yonge Street. How's that underground going to work? All of those things need staff vetting, and ultimately staff will have their comment one way or the other when they go to committee of adjustment. If we hear today, give them a pass on that 2-year rule that we recently implemented, where new planning approvals have to wait 2 years before variances at committee of adjustment. I really think that this is something that, you know, I mean, they're 9 months away from doing it anyway. There's a long queue at committee of adjustment, but ultimately, I have no issue getting them there just a little bit sooner to get this development going, and ultimately one that actually is less impactful on what is already a very tough area to park in. So thank you. I will take the chair back. Thank you, Councillor Pearson, for seconding it, and hopefully we can move forward. We have Councillor Partridge. I can't hear you, Councillor.
All right, hang on.
There you are. Got you now. Thank you.
You got me now? Okay.
I got you.
All right, thank you. No, mine's on 4.2. I'm very supportive of 4.1.
Thank you. Anyone else on? Sorry, Councillor Danko, you should still have the chair, actually. So my apologies. I'll let you run with 4.1 here.
So we just reiterate what's on the floor, what you're proposing for 4.1, and then we'll vote on that.
You have, yeah, you have no other speakers, by the way. Okay, so it's basically they're requesting a motion by planning, because that's the only way it can happen, to get a pass on the 2-year rule after a planning approval to appear at committee of adjustment. We have that new rule where you can't go for variances until after a 2-year period. They're about 9 months away from that 2-year period. And they're requesting, because this is the only way they can do it, is to get a pass on that and be able to submit this variance that turns a 3-story rental building into a 12 stacked unit, but gives us underground parking in the area. So their variance is on one piece of an already approved project that I support at this time.
Clerk Chamberlain, are you clear with what's being proposed?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Any speakers on that? Councillor Wilson?
Good morning. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Farr, just so I understand, I don't have any problem, Councillor, but you mentioned that they'd have to get in the queue, and I thought we were apprised that there was a long lineup in the queue given COVID. So you're just anticipating they're going to get in a longer queue. That's sort of the issue, kind of. I'm just wondering what the is it COVID related? I'm just wondering what the need to sort of circumvent the.
Well, no, the 2-year rule. You mean circumvent the 2-year rule? Well, I think I think that initially, yeah, no, I can't. I wish I could answer. I don't really know for sure. I know the proponent is giddy to get going. I know that initially there were conversations that, you know, more needed to be done on Yonge. That parking issue maybe was what made the proponent apprehensive. This is going back some years too. So this is almost speculation, but I think this is where this kind of landed. And since the proponents had a change of heart and is probably going in the direction that was initially, you know, desired many years ago. He's kind of gone back to saying, you know what, Yonge Street shouldn't be, you know, just fixing up a 3-story and leaving all this space and a lot of surface parking lot Now they want a project that has no surface parking lot. Everything goes underground, and so it's just a better infill project. I've always thought this was the better project. It's only 3 stories high, so it kind of meets the heights on the young side with the residential. But I can't specifically answer what it is. I can't get into the mind of the proponent. I've only worked through the communication that's before us.
No, I appreciate your comments on the development and its intent. I guess my question was process. What was causing them to need to go around it? Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, so we'll vote on that. Moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Good.
All right, thank you. I'll take the chair back. Next, a mover and a seconder, please, to receive 4.2. This is Mike Bozo respecting backyard hens in the pilot project. And that is moved by Councillor Partridge. Okay. That is moved by to receive it. Are you okay to receive it, Councillor Partridge? You want to speak to it too, right? And anybody want to, I'll second it. Councillor Partridge, please. There you are. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. No, I just wanted to receive the correspondence. Thank you.
Oh, seconded by myself. All in favor? Okay, there you are. Okay, that carries. All right, now on to public hearings and written delegations. The public has been advised how to pre-register to be a virtual delegate at a public meeting on today's agenda, and no members of the public have pre-registered to be virtual delegates at any of the public meetings on today's agenda. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the zoning bylaw amendment or draft plan of subdivision applications before us today, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton through the local planning appeal tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So we need a mover and a seconder on 6.1 to waive the staff presentation. That is moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by. I'll second it. This is the waiver of the staff presentation. And anybody want to speak to it? Don't forget, if you want to talk, you can do this. See this, Councillor Johnson? I'm going to be trying to look for that if you want to speak to something. There's also a clerk looking out for you. All right, thank you. Councillor Johnson, go ahead.
Yep, thank you. And I just want to thank the staff again. This is just like the one we had last week. It's within the Scooby lands, and Councillor Farr and Councillor Pearson Collins, you'll all know what a long journey that was to bring that secondary plan to fruition. And this follows the secondary plan to the T. So I just want to thank everybody, including the developer, for following the secondary plan to the T. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, moved by Pearson, seconded by Farr to waive the staff presentation. Councillor Pearson, you want to speak to this too? Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank Councillor Johnson for her comments as well. Coming into this area, Brant Haven, who are the developers, have been excellent. I've been involved with them, as a matter of fact, on the Glover Road development, Glover and Barton, and trying to address issues, and now this. So I'm certainly confident that this will be a great development. It'll finish off a nice quadrant in the middle at the end of the Scooby area. So I'm very supportive, and I'll certainly be happy to move the recommendation at the appropriate time as well. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to waive the staff presentation. All in favor? And that passes. Condello from GSIA, he's in attendance. Mark, you okay with this staff report?
I'm in full support of the staff report and staff's recommendation
Is
for
that good?
approval.
Audio is fine? Okay. All right, gotcha, Mark. Thank you, sir. Mover and a seconder then to receive Mark's brief presentation there. That is moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Collins. All in favor? Pearson, we don't have any members of the public registered to speak, so do you want to move and second to close the public meeting? That's moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Johnson. All in favor? And now Councillor Pearson, waiting for Collins. Councillor Collins. Thank you. Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Johnson. The staff report to approve the application with the amendment that there were no public submissions received on this matter. All in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilson, please, on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just need some enlightenment from you. Are we reporting, are we voting to accept the recommendation? Because I do have some questions on the report.
We are moving to approve, yes, the application, the staff report to approve the application with an amendment. So yeah, you can ask your questions now on that.
Thank you. Just making sure you're giving me the floor now.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Just to help me understand the application, please. It states in the report, just a moment, please, that the subject lands on page 13, just so I understand, the subject lands constitute a greenfield development as the lands are within the urban boundary, but are not identified as being in the built-up area. Can someone just explain that maybe from staff through you, Mr. Chair? Being in a greenfield, but also within the urban boundaries, just trying to understand the description here through you. Thank you.
Do we have Steve or someone?
Through the chair, the distinction between the built-up area and the greenfield is identified in appendix. Is appendix G of the UHOP. It outlines the boundaries of the.
I'm sorry. Would you be able to speak up just a little bit for me? Thank you.
Is this better?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's in the appendix of the UHOP that delineates the distinction between the built-up area and the greenfield areas.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tim. I'm still not sure I understand what that means.
Okay. So it's the there is a map in the that's appended to the Urban Hamilton official plan. It outlines it basically shows what is the built-up area. So that includes all the built area of the city, while there's the greenfield areas, the remainder, which is generally undeveloped, either agricultural or open space lands that are within the urban growth area that's of the Urban Hamilton official plan, but it hasn't been developed and it's unserviced, undeveloped land.
Councillor, if I can assist, just building on that. So based on the provincial growth plan and places to grow, it classifies the urban area as being in one of two areas. It's either a designated greenfield area or it's within the built boundary. The built boundary is generally the area where the province sets the intensification target, and a minimum 40 to 60% of growth should be within the built boundary. Whereas it relates to the designated greenfield area, those are lands within the urban area, but where development has not occurred when the original growth plan was adopted, and the province then sets the minimum density target for those new subdivisions. So these lands are within the urban area, and then we look at it, they're either based on the provincial plan, either within the designated greenfield area or they're within the built boundary. And that's what the staff comment is alluding to. Based on the provincial plans, are they either designated greenfield or built boundary for the purposes of either applying the density target or for achieving our intensification goals as prescribed by the province? Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. So can you please tell me what the density per hectare is for this?
I could speak to that if you would like.
Would you be able to introduce yourself? Because sorry, I'm not familiar with who you are.
Sorry, it's Mark Candela from Glen Schnarr and Associates, here representing Brandhaven Homes.
Are you okay with that, Maureen? We already signed off on you and voted on your delegation, Mark. But wait a minute, since you're there and we appreciate you paying attention, the councillor may feel you're good to answer that question. So if that's all right with you, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, of course.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
For sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, this development achieves a density of 25.8 units per hectare. When what Mr. Robichaud was referring to earlier was densities of persons and jobs per hectare with prescribed in the growth plan. The growth plan has a minimum density of 50 persons and jobs per hectare, and the Fruitland Winona secondary plan was planned to achieve a minimum average of 70 persons per jobs per hectare. It's my understanding in the city of Hamilton, when you're calculating jobs per hectare, they apply a rate of 3.4 peoples per single detached dwelling. So when you do the math there, this development achieves approximately 87 persons per hectare. I hope that helps.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether you would like to stay put because I have a question about page 13 of the staff report, the reference to the species at risk. Just as part of my education going forward, it identifies two species, both of which I'm a little familiar with, the eastern meadowlark and the short-eared owl. Just for the edification of the public, the eastern meadowlark's population has fallen by 89% since 1966 because of loss of habitat. So I think the report tells us that both species may have been spotted on the property, and then one of the consultants went in and said they didn't spot it. But could you just review for me the methodology? Because often when these species aren't spotted, it's because you're unintentionally perhaps disrupting their habitat, so therefore they're not spotted. Are you able to speak to the methodology that's used for that?
Through the chair, I cannot speak to the methodology that was used for that species at risk assessment. I wouldn't be the appropriate person to speak to it. I may have to defer to staff.
Thank you.
On that.
So we'll let staff answer, and then I'm getting all kinds of signals. You're well past your 5, Councillor Wilson, so you can come back after this one if you want. So Steve, are you able to provide a response? Someone on staff, please, or Tim? Or Rumen? I think Tim's good.
Yes, through the chair, certainly as the time passes, the nature of what's found in the field reviews, it does change over time, certainly. And as the report was said, it was reviewed by our natural heritage staff. They would have gone through environmental impact study. The terms of reference would have clearly outlined the methodology on the field reviews, the timing, and those sorts of things. So, that was reviewed and approved by our staff, and this study and the report of the species at risk was also reviewed by natural heritage staff. So addresses any concerns, and as the report says, that if during construction that there are any species of risk identified, that they would be contacting the ministry to follow up with that.
Yeah, there won't be. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Councillor Wilson, can
I just have one last question,
okay,
so if you'd like to come back.
That's fine. No, go ahead with the one last question.
I'm just Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be raising this question here on in. So under the UHOP, the neighborhood designation says E3.2.1 that the neighborhood shall function as a complete community, including a full range of residential dwelling types. So through you, maybe to the the agents or to staff who will be able to live here and who won't be able to live here. And I'm not being rhetorical on that. Thank you.
Steve,
Do,
I see.
do you know what the price range of the houses will be, Mr. Chairman? That's my question.
Yeah, that's fine. Steve, your audio is not working. Director Robichaud.
Sorry, no, I had turned it off. My apologies. Within I mean, I can't speak to the actual price point through Madam Chairman to what these units will be selling for, but you know, as single family homes, they will be at that higher end of the market spectrum. But when we talk about within a complete community within the secondary plan, it's usually to be measured and assessed across the entire area of the secondary plan and not on a property by property basis or application by application basis, and looking at it on those provisions.
Mark, what are they selling for?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have that information in front of me right now. As this application is approved and Branthaven goes through their marketing program, that's when it'll be determined at which price point these units will sell for.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just so I understand, Mr. Robichaud, when we're talking about complete communities, the methodology applies to the entire secondary plan as opposed to the parcel that we're speaking to. And our definition of complete community is not, does it or does it not include economic income?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, when the purpose of doing the secondary plan then is to provide for that full range of housing opportunities within a neighborhood, low, medium, or high density, and variations of it, as well as providing opportunities where people, you know, institutional, open space, protecting natural heritage areas, commercial areas within all of those neighborhoods. And that's why we do the secondary planning, to ensure that there's a full range of land uses being provided within that secondary plan area. In terms of the specific policies, it's generally within the parent document of the OP that talks about providing that full range of housing opportunities within the city of Hamilton to meet all of the various needs of people throughout their entire life cycle in terms of those housing opportunities and housing needs, and recognizing that in some cases that you have more people whose needs are unique in terms of requiring either assisted or affordable housing, and then there's the market range of housing being provided. All of those are contributing to that complete community perspective. And then looking at trying to ensure that there are opportunities globally through the official plan in terms of where people can live, work, and play. So in this case, this community is in very close proximity to employment areas, just on the other side of Barton Street. So it does provide that full range of opportunities for people to live, work, and play within the lower Stony Creek area.
Thank you.
And then just one of the points we are looking, though, in terms of increasing the housing opportunities is we hope to be coming forward next month with a background paper to talk about starting to look at providing secondary dwelling units throughout the city of Hamilton, in terms of whether that be accessory apartments, converted dwellings, or in accordance with the provincial legislation within a freestanding structure on the property, further increasing both the creating additional housing opportunities within the existing housing stock and giving those permissions as of right across the entire city as we rewrite the zoning bylaw. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Wilson, I'm going to move to Danko. There's no one else on the speakers list if you want to come back. Councillor Danko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is on the on the modifications to the zoning that's being requested, specifically the maximum lot coverage. It's being requested to go from 40% is what's required to 48%. And when I read the analysis, it says because the smaller lot area and larger building envelope, because of the modifications of minimum lot frontage and the front and side yards, basically it requires a higher lot coverage. So my question is, isn't that basically a circular argument, because the proponent is asking for reductions to side lot areas, front lot distances, and various other modifications there, which then requires a higher maximum lot coverage, if they just stuck to either what is required or actually reduced their lot coverage, they wouldn't need all those other variances. So again, this is it just seems like a circular argument because we're making accommodations for all these other modifications. It's then requiring a higher lot coverage.
More of a comment, Councillor Danko? Or do you want to have staff respond?
Yeah, if staff could respond.
Okay, no problem. Steve or Tim?
Through the chair. So that is correct. We're looking to achieve more urban built form. And yeah, it is basically it is, and because the lots are generally skinnier, therefore the lot area would be reduced. So that would just trigger the need for the higher lot coverage. So it is generally because the one thing is happening that is that the lot coverage is affected by that in order to achieve the building footprint. The significant difference is because when a lot gets skinnier, the area reduces significantly as a result. So that's a large factor behind that.
Thank you. So I guess it's just as it has been with a number of these applications, it just seems that we're artificially creating oversized, overpriced housing where just a slight reduction in lot coverage instead of an increase would take care of all of those variations. And, you know, again, speaks to the affordability of the housing that we end up building. So thank you for that opportunity to voice those concerns, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Yep. Thank you very much. This process for the secondary plan took probably, I think Councillor Pearson can help me here, probably back in before amalgamation. It finally came to fruition in 2010, then it became 12. It went through 2 huge public meetings. The one thing that came out loud and clear was compatibility. So if you will look at your plan and take a look at the houses that are backing onto this development, they are like for like. If you look at the last development that we just approved in the same geographical area, there's rows and there's towns, and there's also within this secondary plan, there's apartment buildings. Having said that, the farmers came out loud and clear that they didn't want the height of the apartment buildings to be too high because it affected their frost line and therefore the tender fruit in the area would have been destroyed, as it was in Vineland a few years ago. So there was a lot of thought put into this. I understand at first blush, when you first take a look at these applications, it may not sit right, but if you look holistically at the entire plan from Fruitland Road to 50 Road, and south of Barton Street and north of Highway 8, you will see collectively and holistically that they've achieved everything that they need to do. And that's why it's so important for me that the developers follow the secondary plan so we can achieve the numbers that we were looking at. We get the compatibility within each of these developments that we're looking for. And the height is also respected because we have tender fruit growing in the area south of Highway 8, and it's very important that we preserve that farmland. So anyways, I appreciate everybody's comments. Anytime you want to sit down and take a look at my bottom file drawer, it's got about 850,000 booklets and binders, and I'd be happy to go through it with you, and maybe that would help understand this area a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Johnson. The whole Scooby process started in 2008, and it was finally ratified in April 2014. It was a very long, arduous process, and now still working with some developers on their plans going forward because there's three sections in Scooby, Block 1, Block 2, and Block 3. And, you know, it's been a long process, so I appreciate my colleagues' questions on this. But I'm really appreciative that Brandhaven has come forward and they are pursuing single-family residential homes in this quadrant because it is in keeping with the rest of the surrounding development in there currently. Thank you.
All right, no further speakers. So this is moved by Councillor Pearson. You know what, folks? Let's for the record, receive Mark one more time since he was gracious enough to answer some questions as the applicant or representative. So moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Collins. And all in favor. Only doing this because we already had signed off on him and he came back onto the public record. And we did appreciate that, Mark, so thank you. Now, Councillor Partridge, please, to receive the applicant representative once again. Thank you. She's got a thumbs up there. Thank you. And now moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Johnson, regarding the staff report to approve the and an amendment included where no public submissions were received on this matter. All in favor? Okay, Councillor Partridge. Yeah, we got her. Okay, good. And now Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Johnson, to approve the recommendations as amended. We're good. Carrie, may I have a mover and a seconder now to waive the staff presentation for 6.2, which is an application for a zoning bylaw amendment for lands located at 323 Rymel Road East. Moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Danko. All in favor? Good. We welcome Tracy Tucker now with IBI. Tracy, are you in support of this staff report?
Sorry, yes, we're in support of the staff report and the recommendation.
Thank you. Tracy, move to receive Tracy. That's moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Danko again. All in favor? I need a mover now. Thank you. That passes. To receive the written submissions. That is moved by Councillor Partridge, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All in favor? That passes 6-0. We do not have any members of the public registered to speak to this one, so we need a mover and a seconder to close the public meeting at this time, and that is moved by Councillor Partridge and seconded by Councillor Pearson. All in favor? As we vote, we're about to vote again as we look for a mover and a seconder regarding the staff report to approve the application. And of course, the public submissions received on this matter did not affect the decision. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Danko. Councillor Danko, would you like to speak to it too? Okay. Councillor Danko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have two questions on the report. It's tough to figure out when's the appropriate time to jump in on that.
This is good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
The first one is, I believe in the report, it says that the proposed use is not in conformance with the neighborhood plan. So could I get some elaboration on that from staff?
Morning, everyone. Hello.
Yeah, James, you there? I don't see him.
Yes. Yes. So the Barnestown neighborhood plan does designate this property as single and double, and we do need to amend it to medium density apartments. It's an older neighborhood plan, and it's not something that we typically use.
So that neighborhood plan, just because there's a number of very similar properties along Rymel in that area. So how does those older neighborhood plans figure into the decision making process? How much weight do they carry?
We do use them, but they don't have as much weight as, for example, a secondary plan or our official plan that has guidelines for intensification along our major arterial roads and such.
And you mentioned that this is an older neighborhood plan. Do you know when it came into effect?
Just through the chair, I'm not sure.
But that's fine. It wasn't recently, right?
No.
Okay. And then my second question is if we've had communication from the ward councillor with any concerns or anything with this development. Does anybody have?
Through the chair,
Pauls?
we have received confirmation from Councillor Pauls that she's in support of the application.
Okay, great. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, so no further speakers. A mover in, I believe it was Councillor Pearson, and it was a seconder in Councillor Danko that we approved the staff report, and that the submissions received did not affect the decision. All in favor on that one? Seven oh, it passes, and we're in a second to approve the report recommendations as amended, and that is moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Danko. All in favor? As amended. As we wait for the voting results, next up is 6-3 through 6-8. Councillor Johnson, we need you to vote, please. Next item is correspondence on 6-3 that we're going to look at from 6-3 to 6-8 by Kevin Hunt, Terry Brown, Ian Brooke, Pearl Davy. That passes. Jackie Baudouin and Elva Davenport. So a mover and a seconder to receive the items 6-3 through 6-8 and refer them to consideration of 8.1, please. That is moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Johnson. All in favor? Thank you. Councillor Wilson, we're good. We're good. Okay. On to 8.1, which is an application to amend zoning bylaw number 6593 respecting lands located at 370 Concession Street. The agent is Amber Lindsay from Urban Solutions, and Amber is in attendance and does have a presentation for the committee. So a mover and a seconder to receive. If we want to hear, do we want to hear it? Okay. I don't, so it's on the agenda, so Amber will present? Okay. Amber.
Hey, good morning.
I almost bumped you from the proceedings, Amber.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, but you should be facing that natural light behind you so we could actually see you better too, but don't worry about it now.
I'm hardwired in or else I would swap myself around.
For your next visit. Councillor Johnson wishes to speak. Just hold on a second, Amber, okay?
Sure.
Committee Member Johnson.
Thank you. I'm just wondering process-wise, usually we hear from staff first and do their presentation. We have a lot of list of people that are opposing this. So can we follow the process we normally do at the council chambers, please? Can we hear a staff presentation first and then Amber's more than welcome, and then if there's anybody else from the public, because we do seem to have a lot of opposition here. So I just think for the record, we should probably follow the process.
Right.
I agree 100%.
So we're in the discussion part of the agenda. You're right. Like we just went through on the previous agenda, which was not discussion items. That's when we go in that order with staff, but we're actually at the point now where past the public hearings and delegations. So I have no problem to get a refresher myself and for also our committee members on this one. And if it's okay with the agent, which I'm sure it is, we'll let staff give a brief update first, Amber, and then I can bring you on. Are you okay with that?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Amber. So stay with
Thank you.
us. No, fair suggestion. But we are in discussion items, and who on staff would like to offer up a refresher on this application to amend the zoning up there on Concession Street? Who do we have? Melanie?
Through the
Thank you,
chair.
Melanie.
Yes, thank you. So let me just share my screen. I have a quick presentation just to help us all refresh ourselves on where we left off on this application.
Well, you've come more than prepared. Thank you. This is great. You've got a little presentation for us. We're going to ask you to move your mic a little closer to your face.
Is that better?
Much better.
All right, perfect. So as we kind of alluded to, this is an application that did come to Planning Committee back in August of 2019. We did close the statutory public meeting for this application, but the decision was referred back to staff and to the applicant for further consideration. So just to refresh our memories, this is an application to modify the existing DE2 district on the lands. There's also a C district, which was proposed to be amended to a modified DE district, as well as to introduce an RT30 district, which is a street townhouse zone. Here we can see the subject land. So we're fronting, everyone can see my mouse, right?
Go play with it a little bit.
There we go.
Yeah, yep. Good.
Okay, perfect. So we are at 370 Concession Street, and then just on the corner of East 15th Street as well. So the proposal was to introduce 4 street townhouses fronting onto East 15th Street. That would actually take up part of the parking area that exists for 370 Concession. And then the proposal was to expand the parking area down into this area here, which is currently a C district. So again, as I mentioned, there was a lot of concern from the public. Some concerns were relating to lighting, traffic, increase of intensity of use. There was stormwater management concerns. So committee ultimately decided to defer the decision for an open house between the councillor, the applicant, and the surrounding neighborhood. So that open house was held on September 16th, and we did have some planning staff that did attend that. And then just as a refresher as well, this is the concept plan that was presented at the time. So we have the 4 units fronting onto East 15th Street, and then the expanded parking area here. So based on the feedback from the public, the applicants did change the proposal. So it's now 3 townhouse units fronting onto East 15th Street. And then there's also been an adjustment to the parking area expansion back here. So originally it was a very tight setback, but now it's been expanded to a 4-meter setback back here. With the removal of one of the townhouse units, there's been room accommodated for snow storage as well as garbage storage on site. So this slide just shows us some of the adjustments that have been made to the bylaw as a result of these changes. So there's actually been an increase in the minimum landscaped open space required for the apartment building. So it's gone from 20% up to 25. And then we've adjusted that 0-meter setback for that parking area up to 4 meters. And then the bylaw originally requires the bylaw originally required 1.5 meters. There's also been the removal of 1 parking space for the apartment building. So the original ratio that we were proposing was 1 space per unit, and we've adjusted it to 0.97. And I also want to point out with that adjustment, this apartment building was originally constructed with a minimum requirement of 0.85 spaces per unit. So even the 0.97 is still an increase in the required parking that was originally anticipated for this. As well, all of the parking was originally recognized to be surface parking. And then again, just one final modification was adjusting the minimum side yard setback for the townhouses. The original bylaw, we were proposing a 0.7 meter side yard setback, and we've increased it to 1 meter. So again, this image just shows us what the parking area looks like off of East 15th Street, and then the parking area or the garbage area. So the idea is that it would be relocated here. And I believe the applicants are proposing a Moloch system, which is a partially submerged system. So it reduces the frequency of servicing. It also reduces smells and overall impact. And then here, another piece that we wanted to cover was these are the garage spaces that were discussed at the last planning committee meeting. There were concerns of tandem parking because the concept plan does show spaces within or in front of these garages. So staff conducted a site visit with the applicants in January of this year to take a closer look at these garages. And what we found was that the garage dimensions don't fully accommodate a minimum parking stall size. So especially the area that's been circled in the blue box are undersized parking spaces. So staff were concerned not only of providing guaranteed access through allowing tandem spaces, but also just being able to fit a space or fit a vehicle in there and be able to maneuver around. But those are the overall highlights of the changes. But if you have any further questions, let me know.
Melanie, thanks again. Great that you were here to have that at the ready. I don't have anybody asking questions, so let's receive Melanie's presentation, moved by Brenda Johnson, Councillor Brenda Johnson, seconded by Councillor Judy Partridge. All in favor? And Lindsay is standing by from Urban Solutions, who was on our agenda to present to the committee. Oh, sorry, Amber Lindsay. That's not the first time I've called her Lindsay. And so, Councillor Johnson, we need you to vote. Lindsay, you're up. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, as Councillor Farr mentioned, I did have the intention to give a full presentation, but Melanie's summary did an excellent job
Okay.
explaining the process and getting to where we are now. I just will say that I thank staff, especially Melanie's hard work on advancing this application to Planning Committee today. We have reviewed the written submissions as well as the staff report and are of the opinion that the revisions that have been made to the proposal and the amending bylaw, along with the future site plan control process, will satisfactorily address the concerns and therefore are supportive of the staff recommendation and bylaw that's before you today.
Thank you, Amber. Move to receive Amber Lindsay's presentation, moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Appreciate it. Stay with us, Amber. Now, any discussions? Oh, yeah, we got to vote, of course. Yep. Yes, I'm bringing up the rear here. Okay, good. That's unanimous. Discussions on 8.1, and I will state that I had heard, and I think all of us were CC'd, but in case you weren't, the local councillor is good with this and helped in negotiating, particularly I think the 4 units down to 3, and I think some of that landscaping too. So thank you, Amber, for working with Councillor Pauls on this one. So if there are no discussions, then let's move the, Councillor Pearson. No, moved by Pearson, seconded by Councillor Collins. All in favor? Okay, that vote was to receive the written submissions. I didn't say it out loud, but that's what Councillor Pearson and Councillor Collins just moved. Now, Councillor Pearson, with a seconder, and Councillor Collins will move the staff report to approve the application with the amendment that public submissions received on this matter did not affect the decision. So that is moved by Councillor Pearson. It is seconded by Councillor Collins, and it is on the floor. I'm going to be last again because I'm on the wrong. I have way too many screens going here. There we go. I didn't get to count, but I'm carried. I'll move in a second now to approve the report recommendations as amended. Moved by Pearson, seconded by Collins. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Amber. On to 8.2, recommendation to designate 127 Houston Street North. Paul, you supported me in deferring this item back June 24th. It's good to go now. I don't even need to speak to it. So if someone would like to move that and second it, and we can get on with things. Well, just a moment. The clerk's interrupting the proceedings. This must be pressing. Stay tuned. Yes. Yes, of course. We'll say that out loud. And a very good point. That was worth interrupting this meeting for. This item was deferred from June 24th to this date by myself, and it was a recommendation to designate 127 Houston Street North in Hamilton, the old Firth Brothers building. It was used by Copley's forever. And so that's what we're doing here today. We're designating it. We needed some time to work with the constituent who had some active building permits on the interior that had nothing to do with the designation. They would have been, had we designated it back on the 24th, you may recall, those permits would have been null and void. So the work is complete. We're ready to go on the designation. That is moved by our Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee member, Councillor Pearson, and seconded by Councillor Partridge. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you, everybody. Again, I missed the vote, but I'm going to assume 7-0. It is unanimous. 8.3 is an application for approval of a draft plan of condominium common element lands located at 315 Daglish Trail in beautiful Glanbrook, Ontario. This item was deferred from July 7th to allow staff and the agent to prepare a change to these conditions. Spencer Skidmore, AJ Clark and Associates, he's in attendance to speak to the matter. And Councillor Johnson, last item, you suggested it might be good to get a staff refresher. Is it the same here, or are we good to go to AJ Clark? Good to go? Okay. So Spencer, anything to say on this matter?
Morning, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to thank staff for working with us over the past couple of weeks to square away these conditions. We really appreciate it. Apart from that, fully support staff's recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Move to receive Spencer's commentary. That is moved by. Hey, come on. There we go. Moved by, who's moving it? Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Collins. All in favor? No, don't worry about it. Thank you. Yes, this is to receive the agent. And now on the item, Councillor Pearson. Oh, we'll need a seconder. Oh, we need to get the vote tally here. Pearson, did you vote on the receiving of the agent? Councillor Pearson, you did? Okay. Thank you. Stay with me. Councillor Pearson, would you like to move it, Councillor Pearson? Okay, you want to speak to it? Go ahead. We don't have a mover to get it on the floor yet, or a seconder.
Oh, okay. I think Councillor
Moved by
Brenda
Councillor Johnson. Yeah, and seconded
And I'll second
by, okay, and now you wish to speak to it.
My only comment, Mr. Chairman, is I'm fine with it, if the ward councillor is, but it's saying Ward 9. I believe that's Ward 11.
Oh,
no.
okay.
No, it's Ward 9. Okay, thank
9,
you.
yeah.
Just wanted to be sure.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
All right, all in favor? Pearson.
Yep.
know what that is. Okay.
And now Councillor Johnson will move and Councillor Pearson will second regarding the staff report to approve the application with an amendment that there were no public submissions received on the matter. That's before us now. Carry 7-0, and the same mover and seconder to approve the recommendations in this report as amended. Thank you, everybody. Councillor Pearson, please. Thank you, Councillor Pearson. So, on to motions. Councillor Danko, I guess you got to take the chair, please.
Go ahead, Councillor Clark. Farr.
Thank you. Councillor Clark is no longer with the committee. I hope the revision is here. I'm just opening it up, folks. Sorry, it is not. So I have to read an amended motion. Is it here? Oh, thank you so much. So there's a written amendment on the therefore be it resolved, and this is with a full collaboration and 100% unity with the Ward Councillor Nan. We were dialoguing right up until this morning before the meeting. So the motion now reads, whereas the Planning Act and the Urban Official Plan state that the city shall reserve or obtain road widenings for rights of way as described in Schedule C2, future road widenings, whereas transportation planning staff have requested right-of-way widenings along Main Street East frontage, Victoria Ave North frontage, and King Street East frontage. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to amend the site plan condition. City file numbers there to waive, and this is the wording right now after the word waive, and therefore you'll see all of the road widenings. It's no longer all of the road widenings. It is the right-of-way widenings for Main Street East and Victoria Avenue North. For the lands located at the northwest corner of Main Street East and East Avenue South, known municipally as 20 East Avenue South. Is that right? You got that? You know what? Let me make it absolutely clear. That probably is right, but I'm just going to go to Narinder's. I'm just going to make absolutely sure. No, I know. Here it is. This is from Daniela. Yeah, no, you got that first one. It is correct. Our clerk, Lisa, did a wonderful job. I want to speak very briefly to this.
Is your seconder, Councillor Farr?
My seconder is Councillor Collins.
Thank you.
And you'll, if you've been on this committee for a while, you'll know that we've had a number of these, what we call road widenings. There's probably more staff than not that are greater experts on these matters than any of us that don't like that term road widening. It really is an OP thing that we ought to change sooner or later. More or less, you know, when you visit a formal consultation, everybody from everywhere, from parking to different planners, to the directors, to a lot of public works folks or engineering, will be sitting around the table and offering advice. And invariably, every time it gets to the road widening, we go by the letter when it's public works turn at any formal consultation, and they are not in any way being prejudiced. They are just sticking to that 6-meter deal, and it works in a lot of neighborhoods. But when you're looking at the more intensified neighborhoods where there's already facades close to the sidewalk, it actually can, whether in a residential neighborhood in the north end or Corktown or along like main streets like this, King and Main, or Victoria. This one's 3-sided major arterials. You can actually mess up the aesthetics, in my opinion, and it's happened time and time again. So I started catching wise to this years back. This is probably the 8th road widening motion I've had where we're trying to be a little more respectful, but this one has an added dimension in that you're dealing with a specific footprint, a heritage church that everyone knows and loves, St. Pat's. provincial monies and a project ready to go with the Hamilton Wentworth District Catholic School Board. I've spoken to Chair Daly on this, Planner Webb on this, and staff on this. And the more space we can utilize on that specified footprint for the renewal of the school, a whole new St. Pat's school on this parcel, the more area that's already limited and always will be limited, but a little bit of an expansion where the kids can play. So that's what we were looking for here. In addition to that age-old argument, particularly where the main streets are concerned, where, you know, what a terrible visual we're presenting when we're talking out loud. And again, Public Works is just going by the book. Whatever the OP says, that's what we want. We're not even going to think about things like, or what the term is and how it may impact some people. Because when you start talking down in wards 1, 2, and 3 particularly about widening Main Street or widening King Street, and you already have 5 lanes on one or 4 on the other, that's all people are hearing. No, we have to have all of this right away road widening, just in case we want to widen Main one day and widen King one day, or widen Victoria, another one-way thoroughfare. So initially the conversation was about that, and then I learned further that this was also about a design that made it a lot more kid friendly in an inner city school that has such history and that actually has heritage attributed to it with St. Pat's Church. So all of that said, thank you for the time. I'm probably closing in on the 5 minutes. Thank you for working with me, Councillor Nan, on these amendments, or allowing me to work with you. And again, this has been vetted through the good councillor and with the planner on the file and with staff. So I very much appreciate the time and hopeful for your support. And thank you to Councillor Collins for seconding.
Thank you, Councillor. Clerk Davenport's indicated there's nobody on the speakers list. Anybody wishes to speak to this? Seeing none, I do have a quick question for transportation planning. If there's any comment there on the long-term impacts of this?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Danko, we have been working with the applicant on this. One of the reasons minor amendment, which Councillor Farr just added, was to ensure that the lands required for King Street for a future rapid transit corridor are dedicated, and we're happy with that.
Thank you, Director Hollingworth. No further speakers, so all in favor, moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Collins. Can't hear you, Councillor Farr.
Hang on there as chair, Councillor Danko. I have a notice.
Okay. We're on notices and motions, so go ahead.
So I don't think anyone has this in front of them right now. It's quite lengthy, but it is a legal agreement on a laneway that is a Class A laneway, which is like cement and cared for by the city and all of that. It's over in International Village. So I seek to waive the rules. Michael Kovacevic is here. I just received this morning, and I seek to waive the rules only because, again, it's an agreement that has already been worked on with staff for a development of 377 as of right. A project over there at 1 Jarvis, the old TICAT office, the old squash club. So anyway, I don't want to speak too much to it. I seek to waive the rules, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Collins.
Motion to waive the rules is on the floor. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any way to put this motion up on you said it's quite lengthy, and I don't have a problem with waiving the rules. I just want to know what it is we're talking about.
Sure.
Can we put it up on, can we share it, please, clerk?
Which we're working on that. Does any?
It's just really frustrating, especially
I
if it's
agree.
over a legal matter and it's going to bite us in the rear end later. I just want to make sure we're okay.
I'm perfectly fine with this. I really didn't think it was going to come here, to be honest with you. And I found out this late last night, and I just got it this morning. There it is. Would you like me to read it?
Okay, stop moving, please.
Stop moving.
Okay, Lisa, we can put it down a little bit more. I haven't, sorry, I'm just speaking on my own behalf. If anybody else wants to jump in.
I appreciate it, Councillor.
So my question to you, Acting Chair, is this time sensitive? Is that why we have to waive the rules and get this done now before we digest it?
Councillor Farr, time sensitive?
Thank you for the question. This, I thought, was done 2 months ago. We've been kind of kicking it back and forth. It is a bit unique. And then I found out, again, just last night, that it was the preference, I think, mostly of legal. I also talked to Brian Hollingworth in transportation, that it's better served as a council motion, probably, and I'm guessing here, and I'm trying to get a hold of Michael all morning as well, Kovacevic. You don't want to set a precedent as staff. They'd rather it be in the hands of council to allow this. And all what this is, as you can see from reading it, is working out an agreement to have the owners utilize an alley that so many owners are already utilizing. So many residents are already utilizing. A lot of commercial operators are already utilizing. Garbage services the area 3 times a week. It is a full concrete, wide laneway, but there's a portion in this project, and again, good to go unless we wait another month for the next planning committee meeting to answer your question. Good to go. This is the last remaining issue. But it's unique in that there are owners that are entering and exiting. There'll be new people entering and exiting an already well-utilized laneway, rather than entering on Jarvis Street or entering on Ferguson Street, because this is a pretty big parcel. But it's a maintenance agreement. It's an agreement between the owners who have also, in a lot of deliberation on this as of right site plan. It doesn't need to come to planning committee, because what they're doing here are downtown secondary plan permits. They gave up, the proponents here, I think it was 6 meters from this laneway already. So they've altered this dramatically, this site plan, and gave all this land adjacent to the north side of this laneway. And I think the assumption was that so they don't have to encroach potentially on the already well-utilized laneway, Class A alleyway that the city manages as it stands. And then they found out, well, they did need to cover that. So they did need to do a maintenance agreement on the land they already gave the city to make this work, this ingress egress situation work. All of that was done. And then I found out last night, the right way to do it in legal's capacity and legal's mind, from what I understood last night, and then seeing this morning, is that it's better or stronger, or there's less likelihood of setting a precedent as staff if it was resolved by council. This agreement, it's specific to ingress egress.
So through you, Chair, to Councillor Farr, and I believe we really need, because I just saw a chat come in from Michael.
Oh, you never got back to me this morning?
I
Oh,
was
good.
not aware of this matter. The motion as written does not authorize the agreement to be entered into, just direct staff to prepare the perimeters of one. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Michael.
Yes.
That helps out a lot.
Yeah, and those, just so you know, it's prepared. And that's fine. I mean, Patrick's on holiday too, folks. I tried to get a hold of him this morning. All right,
So
thank you.
we're still on waiving the rules.
Yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Collins.
Okay, so we'll put that to a vote.
He's no longer there. Councillor Johnson, will you second it? Thank you.
Thank you. That passes. And the main motion, Councillor Farr.
Yeah, and okay, Councillor Danko, Clerk Lisa Chamberlain is asking me to ask you to just hang on for 2 seconds, okay?
Yep.
Just, did we get Councillor
Yeah.
Wilson?
Oh.
That's what I'm looking for.
Sorry, I was
No.
looking at the previous
Okay.
vote.
Five oh at Pat. Or
Thank you.
acting chair.
Okay, so now the main motion, Councillor Farr.
Yeah, so the therefores is that staff be directed to prepare a condition of approval for site plan, which sets out the parameters of an alleyway maintenance agreement. That the agreement for the maintenance of the alleyway whereby the condo corporation, One Jarvis, maintains the alleyway in its entirety from Jarvis Street to Ferguson Avenue at its cost be subject to the satisfaction of the Director of Transportation Operations and Maintenance, that the owner must at its own expense improve the surface condition and drainage of the laneway between Jarvis Street and the west limit of the parking access, subject to the satisfaction of the Senior Director of Growth Management, and notwithstanding that this draft approval, city policy shall remain to not allow access to assumed alleyways for site plan applications, subject to exceptional circumstances at the city's unfettered discretion. That explains everything that I mumbled to you, Councillor Johnson, a little bit earlier. So, and again, I appreciate it, and I'm very sorry for the last minute stuff here, but this is really good to go. All of A through D are done. We just needed council to ratify it. All of the I's dotted, the T's crossed, and a lot of us, especially in International Village, decimated through this COVID-19 issue, like so many commercial corridors, to get 377, close to 400 dwelling units, feeding and servicing for future, and bringing what was an already thriving BIA, really get them closer to being back to life and bring some excitement to the area. This is, for me, something we've been working on a long time, and I'd be really happy to hurdle the sticks on this one today, and not when is our next meeting, August something or other. So thank you, August 11th. Thank you, everybody. The seconder was Councillor Collins. He's gone. So Councillor Johnson, thank you.
Can I go to Mr. Kovacevic? I think you've got a suggestion for some of the wording.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and through you. If the intention is to go forward with the agreement, the wording of the motion should indicate that the city is authorized to enter into the agreement. And,
can you adjust your microphone?
Can you hear me now?
Just move it a bit closer to your mouth. It was a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
How's that? First time somebody told me they can't hear me. I would suggest that if the intention is that the agreement be entered into, that the wording include in the motion include that the agreement be authorized to be entered into on such terms as satisfactory to the GM, and that the GM be directed, be authorized to sign the agreement.
Okay.
Councillor Danko, Chair Danko, Lisa's jotting that stuff down now. We'll make sure she got it. You got it? Okay, she got it.
Okay, so you're okay with that, Councillor Farr?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank
you. No problem.
Any further discussion? Nope. None. So moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All in favor?
Five oh. Vice Chair.
That passes. All right,
Thank you so much.
Chair back.
Thanks, everybody. Any other notices of motion? Anyone? General information, Jason, any updates to the committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, I don't have any updates at this time.
Okay. Audio, Thorne says no updates at this time. So we need a mover and a seconder for 11-1. This is to receive the general manager's update that we didn't really have, but his update was that I have no updates, so we don't have to do that. All right. And we'll move on then to private, I believe private and confidential. Yes. Mover and a seconder to approve the recommendations A, B, and C contained in the report if we're not. Oh, sorry, Councillor Pearson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd be happy to move this. This was a negotiated or mediated settlement before LPAT, and I don't believe we need to go in camera for any updates. So I'd be prepared to move whatever needs to in open session. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Partridge. All in favor? Oh, and you're in favor of recommendations A, B, C contained in report LS 18050A, PED 18212A, remain confidential until made public as the city's position before LPAT, and that the remainder of report LS 18050A, PED 18212A, and its appendices remain confidential. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Partridge. All in favor? And that passes 5-0. So adjournment now, moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Partridge. All in favor?
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
Really? I threw two. Thank you, considering I threw two curveballs at you guys today. I appreciate that. So moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Partridge. All in favor? Thank you, everybody, for contributing, especially the three clerks.
Excellent work, everybody.
Bye, guys.
See ya.